was gonna say what's.
Restart.
Yeah, cut that.
Go again.
Can we go again? I didn't do anything. I didn't make any sounds.
Beep. Go.
I think what we should do is we should just have this be the start of the podcast.
Are we recording? Or
Hey,
We've been
you're the one
recording.
Hey, everybody. Hi. What's your name? My name's Eli, and this is When the Lights Go Out podcast.
All right, restart.
No, we're going with this. Today, we're going to talk. This is actually the last episode of our kind of mini series, our 4-episode mini series, where we talk about historical events and sporting events and how they kind of intermingle, interact, and how they kind of always have this universal ability to interact, and it's hard to take them apart. With me today, yesterday and tomorrow, just kidding about those. Move?
It's Moof, I guess. I mean,
who else?
That was a weird intro.
We're going with
right
it.
now.
James, what's your name?
Today my name is James.
Sean?
Today my name is at Need No Applause on Twitter.
Also known as?
Also known as Sean.
Welcome. And this again is the last one, and we're talking about more of a less of one political event or one kind of series of political events. And instead I think we're kind of talking about an overarching theory, kind of the umbrella of a certain political event and the umbrella of a certain sporting event. And I think it's going to tie the whole, the whole mini series together. I hope you like it. It's also, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. It's going to like bring us up to today, because we've kind of been going chronological order. So this is going to bring us up today.
Yeah.
And James, why don't you get us started?
Yeah. So throughout the series, we've been touching here and there on this sort of thought that like politics and culture and sports like are intertwined, like, and they always will be. They have been and they will be. So I'm sort of going to take it one step further and look at some specific instances in which sports might have like had a pretty serious impact on especially U.S. politics. And so what I'm looking at mostly is the Olympics, which we obviously know are like a huge event in the summer every 4 years. And it just so happens that they line up with U.S. presidential elections. So every 4 years in the summer, we get to watch Michael Phelps swim in the pool and feel really good about ourselves. And then 3 to 4 months later, we go and we vote for who's going to be the president. And depending on how the U.S. performs at these Olympics, it definitely affects how we sort of view ourselves in the world and how we're thinking about ourselves. Like on our previous podcast, we discussed the Iran hostage crisis and being a broadcast during the Super Bowl, a moment of like really big national confidence and kind of shaking that. And so most of these Olympics that I find are interesting occurred during the Cold War, which was like a big culture war, like us versus them, kind of our way of life is better than their way of life kind of thing. And there's a few Olympics in specific, like I'm gonna look at mostly from 76 to the early 90s. So starting in 1976, the Olympics were in Montreal. And this was also, what?
I made
Montreal.
a joke. I'm sorry.
Montreal. So this was also Ford running for election. Ford had never been elected to vice president or president, so he's not looking too good. He also recently pardoned Nixon. People didn't like that. And our place in the world was very shook. Like the 70s were not a great time. There's like this sort of like America is the best thing is starting to crack. And in these Olympics, the US like totally got their butt kicked. Like the Soviets and East Germans way outperformed US athletes. They may or may not have been on performance enhancing drugs, but
Roids?
Allegedly.
But at the time, it just looked like they were just like running away with this. And that like definitely shook US confidence. And that election saw Ford being ousted, which is and was fairly rare for incumbents to lose. Like that doesn't happen very often. And then like 4 years later, Carter's running for election now. And again, like the US is in a very similar situation. National confidence is low. The Iranians have held US people hostage for 400 days. It's not a great time. And these Olympics are in Moscow, and we boycotted them to protest the Soviet-Afghan war. And so the Russians just like have a fucking field day with it. And like, it's just like a big party. And we have to like sort of sit on the sidelines and be sad about ourselves. And people didn't like that. And so Reagan shows up and he's like, hey, you know what? No, American is still the best. And people like that message better. And they sort of rejected Carter in a not very close election. And then we'll jump forward another 4 years. In 1984, the Olympics are back in LA. That is Reagan's home state, California. And although his first term was like really rocky, we have a much different view of Reagan now than what actually happened. But the Soviets boycotted this one because they were mad at us for boycotting the last one. And we just had a big party. Like the US ran away with all the medal tables. Reagan himself he lit the torch. It was like a whole big schmuck. And like, not surprisingly, Reagan won the election by like unprecedented margins. Only Minnesota and DC voted for Walter Mondale.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well,
and he's from Minnesota. So
oh, yikes.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. And it was, but 1984 was, and at this point, the Cold War is sort of almost going to be wrapping up. And there's a few more examples, but in 96, in 2004, in 2012, incumbents were all up for election. Clinton, Bush, and then Obama, and the United States performed, like we won the medal table in all three of those Olympics, and the incumbents won. And then, so after my long ramble, to tie us back up to in 2020, there was no Olympics this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we saw for the first time since 1992, an incumbent president lose re-election, a president who ran on this Keep America Great slogan, which I think most people would find it difficult to, or easier to see that if we had like a bunch of people doing really well in sports.
Yeah. I mean, you call it a ramble. What it is like a perfect laying out of this really interesting idea and theory that kind of brings us to this subject we're talking about, which is like how, again, sports and this idea of sports connects so easily with national pride, nationalism, or whatever you want, patriotism. If you're in America, that's kind of what we call it. And again, that Make America Great, whether it's again or whatever, like that kind of idea is very, whether you agree with it or not, or what comes with the subtext, it's like what that statement says is the same thing that an American flag raised high says. It's that patriotism. It's that we are the best. It's that feeling of the best, and you get it so often in sports, in individual leagues, and then at that level, it only makes sense. Before you told me this, it wasn't a thought in my mind that they could affect each other. The Olympics and our presidential races could affect each other, but it's like, of course it is, because they both, in some ways, are kind of working off of the same idea, which is that like we're the best and we need to be the best and we need to show that we're the best.
Yeah. And
I think, go on.
No, you go.
All right. So I think like even beyond that, showing we're the best, winning the medal count in the Olympics, it subconsciously puts in your mind like, hey, we're at a good spot. Maybe this can keep going for another 4 years. You know what I mean? But like, it's interesting how sports now, we've talked about this in other podcasts at length, but like how sports are affecting politics now. Most recently, the WNBA in Kelly
Yeah.
Loeffler's election had made that huge swing. If for those of you who don't know, Kelly Loeffler is a part owner of the Atlanta Dream, which is an WNBA team. The players and the coaches all got together to support the opposing candidate who won that Senate election. I think the greatest part about that story is when the Black Lives Matter movement was ramping up in the summer, Kelly Loeffler had sent a letter to the WNBA commissioner saying, hey, we don't want this. We want to take this out. The WNBA commissioner then sent out a memo to all the players and coaches with a list of action items. The first one on that list was figure out how to buy out Kelly Loeffler's part of the Atlanta Dream. So,
wow. Well, I don't know if LeBron James was joking or not, but on Twitter he was like, "Who's trying to buy this team?" And he's got money, so
He's got lots of money.
he can probably do it himself.
I mean,
yeah,
probably could, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a. When I think that this kind of theory that you brought to us, I think it's just kind of like the largest possible, maybe not the largest possible, but one of the largest possible versions of what we've been talking about, which is the undeniable, at least now, if you've been listening, undeniable correlation, partnership almost between the way people consume and enjoy sports and the way people deal with these
Politics.
major issues in politics. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
And I think I was muted for a little bit and figuring out why. So I might have missed if we talked about this, but I think it's also important to highlight that we're not with this correlation. We're not saying that like Trump lost because the Olympics weren't held.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
There are many reasons why.
And Ford lost because I think it also, I think it's on the flips, like the other side, it shows like the importance of it too. So like not discrediting everything else, but I think we're trying to highlight like the importance of how sports is connected to national pride and how sports is connected to the everyday politics of people's lives. And like I was thinking about the Winter Olympics, which matter a little less to people, except for the US and in Canada and Gus stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a high cost, entry cost sports.
Yes.
Anyways, but I was just thinking like we like won a bunch of medals too, and like Shaun White, it was his final, whatever. But I don't know if I cared past a couple weeks after. Like I almost want to postulate a theory that there's an oversaturation of medals that we win to the point where I feel less national pride for each one. Because
for each individual one?
Yeah.
So are you saying you feel the same amount of national pride? It's like binary where if we do good, that's good national pride.
No, I think what he's saying is that there's a law of diminishing returns. Like,
with each one after. Okay.
And not only that, like a lot of diminishing returns within the Olympics, I think also within each successive Olympics.
Yeah.
Where we do so well, because it's almost unexpected at this point.
Yeah.
And we also don't always win the biggest competitions. We win a lot of swimming. We win basketball.
Hey, Maryland loves swimming.
Basketball feels like a handout, like it does.
Yeah.
and like
a layup, if you will.
We struggle in track sometimes. We struggle in a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
And then like
archery,
soccer.
We're not good
at men's soccer, at least. Our women's soccer team.
Yeah, men's soccer we're not good at.
Right. And so it's like, and that's the thing. I felt the most national pride when the women won the you know, but like the men have never really won in recent times, as far as I know. And like, so like it's we win such a big share. I mean, by so much, but it's almost like I don't know if I care too much because we win so much right now. Like,
Yeah.
I think we need a year of just losing tons, and
You
just
know what
being
I
awfully.
think? You know what I think that does? Can I talk? So, no, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that.
He
I
like
just
pulls
wanted,
up the sass.
No, it's okay.
Late night. Late night sass.
So, I mean, I think Sean's absolutely right, and maybe Moof is about to say this, and I just stole his thunder, and I feel horrible.
Probably not.
Probably. I think that is like I think that makes a lot of sense within the context of the presidential incumbent winning and losing, because like if we are expected to do well, and the more we do well, the higher the expectations are, and we don't reach those expectations, whether we're close or not close, either way, the feeling of not meeting expectations is gonna last. And in those instances, the incumbent president lost. And then in following instances, when we did well, the incumbent won. And that is kind of regaining that national pride, that patriotism, and those
comeback
expectations.
Story.
Yeah, it's really like it's a dip from the expectations, and so the fact that we have those expectations in the first place means that we're going to, after a losing year, going to push it up. So there's always a dip is always going to be a dip, and never a lasting kind of trough or just downward trend.
Yeah. I think it's the situation now. I think is a little bit different in that we are so used to doing well, and that's like. But in the 70s and 80s, it was like a very different. Like it wasn't really clear like if like Soviets were gonna overtake the like. I mean, there was like Vietnam, there was Afghanistan. Like it was a little less clear, and that's sort of interesting. So 1980 like was also a Winter Olympic year because it was before they offset them, and that's like Miracle on Ice year.
Miracle on Ice,
and that was in Lake Placid, but like Carter really failed to kind of like capitalize on that. He didn't even go there. Like he sent the vice president to light the torch and stuff, and like the Miracle on Ice dudes all like came back to the White House recently and were like all wearing those cute little red hats that we all love so much. Which is just like, yeah, they sort of failed to, like Carter failed to capitalize on the fact that he could have attributed that to himself, but they saw it as like, yay, Reagan kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think that is also like how much does the country capitalize on national pride for each medal won? Like, I'm forgetting, but like. For example, curling. Like I remember cheering more for our U.S. curling team.
Hell yeah.
Than the other sports, really, because other than like the ones like snowboarding and stuff, like, and we're never good at curling. So like, and so like if we had won, I would have felt like way cooler about like, USA versus like.
Great point.
Yeah, and I just thought of this. Like, I wonder if the type of sport also matters, where if it's an individual event versus like a team sport, because team sports I think can write a lot of plot, while individuals sports are very like focused on the individual's own story. I mean, like with Shaun White, that's like all they talked about. But like with the US curling team, they probably like mentioned like, oh, like this is the history of the U.S. performance, all this stuff.
There's more than just one story. It's those people and the history of the team. That's interesting too, because if you look at like, I think, swimming, we're know each other from the state of Maryland, great state, and like something like 90% of the swimming medals or something come from Maryland, 80s, 70s. It's a high amount of medals that the U.S. has won, and I think about like Katie Ledecky, and it's like I love watching Katie Ledecky swim, not because I enjoy like all the medals she wins, but because it's fun to like watch her truly destroy records people thought were not humanly possible. And it's like if she didn't do that, it wouldn't be as interesting. to me, and it would just be another like I don't know most of the swimmers, but like she's just that like literally better than anyone else has been at swimming.
No,
and it takes that much to get to that point. Whereas in curling, it's fun to watch because you're like, oh, like these people are really trying, and we're like not usually good at this. Let's just like watch them try to succeed.
I think this also highlights like a deeper part of like sports in general, where if you're on a winning team, it's hard to care like every year. Like if you're Arsenal or like some like the Yankees or like just a team that like.
What type of team, Sean?
What
I don't know. Of football team?
None of my teams this year really make the playoffs. You know, so
this year. What about the last 20 years?
Okay, yes, but hold on, Eli.
I was a Patriots fan.
Eli, I was getting. If you just gave me a second.
In the middle of a. Can you let him speak, Eli?
Cut that.
Anyways,
I'll stop talking for the rest.
What I'm saying is that it becomes more people shift to the underdog and start rooting against you. As a Patriots fan, I was always rooted against. I didn't mind. I accepted it. I understood. I wasn't like, this sucks. Like I got it. But as you mentioned on the counterpoint, the one place I would get respect as a Patriots fan is Tom Brady, because Tom Brady, arguably the best quarterback of all time.
At this point, I don't think it's arguable.
So people like had respect to being the best of all time, even though they may have the franchise. So you're talking about Katie Ledecky. So there's like a level where like a team's winning a lot, but if someone's making records, that's why I didn't mind LeBron winning last year. Even though I don't like the Lakers and they have tons of money, and because he is probably one of the top 3 greatest players of all time. And
there's that uncanny valley.
And so I think like the U.S. as a whole is like we've already set the record. Like we're already like the greatest of all time.
Are we the Patriots?
Yeah, we're the Patriots. The U.S. is the Patriots
of the world.
Yeah,
no.
All you NFL anti-Patriots fans have been shitting on the Patriots. You've been the Patriots the whole time.
I think
astronaut meme. Like,
oh no.
I think that like it's at this point it's just we're expected to do well, right? So I think that's like the biggest thing to your point, Sean, is like you're talking about law of diminishing returns. Personally, for me, like Michael Phelps, the first 10 medals was good. And like it was impressive to me, and then everyone after that was like, it's expected of him to.
Yeah,
it's just like it means so much less, and like then you start talking about like value theory of like medals as if it's economics, because when you're super rich, the medals have less value to you versus when you're a country that's won maybe one medal in their entire lifespan, it means so much more to them. And so like it's almost like the value of the success is just different for a successful team versus an unsuccessful team.
Exactly. Like the Browns are shitting themselves this year because they made it to the playoffs.
And that's why the NFL is so fun this year, because teams that have been historically shit are
still historically shit.
They're bad, but they made the playoffs. Like that Washington football team is a good team.
I'll take it.
They're a good team. The Bills are a great
good team. Is pushing it.
No, they're a good team.
The Washington football team. Technically a football team.
If the Washington football team played consistently, I think they could beat the Bucks. And then the Bills are a great team. Bills are a great team now, historically bad.
This is gonna come out after.
Yeah, this is gonna age very poorly.
We're keeping it in.
It's I made a $50 bet with multiple people that the Bucks
don't condone gambling, but
the Bucks are going to make the playoffs because no one believed it in the offseason, and I am going to be rich.
What you should be doing is what me and Moof did this year, which is just trade the same $10 back when we bet on the.
We just kept betting on the Jets, and then we did.
It didn't happen. Eventually, we stopped, and then they finally
won. Like it was the most disappointing thing ever.
Yeah.
I have one more thing. It's kind of the kind of value of those things. It's interesting because I kind of mentioned it earlier in a different an earlier podcast in this series, but what it means to be an individual and work your butt off and have the Olympics be the culmination. Maybe you only get to one, or maybe you get to multiple, but like either way, those events feel to you as the athlete competing as something like you're bringing pride to your country, and you're also you're at the peak of your game, you're at the top of your game.
Right.
But what it means to a country is very different. So, and also I think that what it means for like an American to bring a medal in, to bring home a medal in a sport that we often medal in versus
Right, exactly.
someone in a country that wins 2 medals a year to bring a medal in something they've never gotten a medal in for.
No, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Those differences are vast.
I wonder if the U.S. is going to start exporting Olympic athletes because they could
Like renting them out.
no, like not as much as like an official formal contract, but I just mean like Olympic athletes choosing to go to other countries, maybe their home countries, because a lot of us are U.S. athletes are not like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
like,
already happening in one way. With
right. I know. Yeah, basketball, and I know soccer does that too. But like, I
soccer,
want
yeah.
Olympics. Like, are there any people who like? Because, like, imagine how much pride you're going to bring to that country that maybe your ancestors or your grandparents, or I don't know, like how far back generations go.
Yeah.
Like, bring it back to the U.S. and like, you should receive so much more fame, so much more notoriety, you know, and maybe it would mean more. I don't know.
Yeah, you also don't have to medal to do that. Like you can just like bring, like some countries don't compete in certain things, certain sports because nobody's like good enough to.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like then like, oh, you got fourth place in basketball. Like that's awesome.
The Jamaican bobsled team, they were very
running
famous for that. Yeah,
it's a great.
That's why. That's kind of the reason Becky Hammond is like huge in Russia. Because she left the U.S. women's basketball team, went to Russia, played there, played internationally for Russia, and like won a lot, like a good amount.
Yeah, because I know don't a lot of Euro stars in soccer like play for different teams.
One big one was Ronaldo, again with Russia. Mario Fernandez went from, I believe, Brazil straight to Russia. Like a month before the last FIFA tournament, men's FIFA tournament, got an expedited citizenship because you need that to play for the
yeah.
And then just played for Russia.
Interesting. I know that Messi plays for Argentina, but obviously he resides.
But that's because he's from Argentina.
Yeah. Like they don't win his Argentinian teams are worse than his teams.
Yeah, I do remember
they love him.
The last Olympics, they were doing a lot better, and that was like a big deal. But
it's like the only blemish on his like.
Yes.
Basically, essentially,
he's not
perfect.
winning a whatever World Cup or.
It's World Cup, and then he also loses a lot in the Champions League, relatively.
Yeah. But it's interesting to bring up the point about the World Cup. Like, Croatia was in the World Cup final recently.
Yeah, right,
that's right.
Yeah.
This is like a tiny Eastern European country, and they were like thrilled.
Yeah.
I was rooting for them.
Yeah.
I think we all were.
Yeah, and
that goes back to the underdog mentality we were mentioning.
Yeah, we love those underdog stories.
It's human nature.
There's I was at the opening ceremony. They always show how many medals each country has, and it's like I remember whenever the last Olympics, 5 years ago, right? That's how it works.
Is that Rio?
No.
Wait, are you talking about FIFA or are you talking about Olympics?
No, Olympics.
Rio was 2012.
Rio was 2016.
Was it not? No, Beijing was 2008.
Beijing.
Wait, hold up. I might be wrong. Hold on.
No, we're missing one though.
Was 2012 London?
2012 might have been London. Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
it was 2016.
I'm
an idiot.
But there was just so many countries with one medal, and it was like really. I was like, wow, like. It was like, first of all, like I don't recognize these countries because of my Western imperialist education, but also like it's like crazy. Like there's just so many countries out there like that you would win a medal and you become like a national hero.
Yeah, and like there are people like Michael Phelps wins gold, but like there are Americans winning not gold.
Yeah.
But like medaling just beneath him, and we just like don't even acknowledge that.
We know Ryan Lochte for like one reason.
Yeah.
One reason only.
We know him because he medals, or
no, because he did some dumb shit in Brazil.
I think we know him because he's
robbed the gas station.
dumb,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I thought we knew him beforehand because he did dumb shit.
Well, we knew he was on the team.
I mean, he medaled a couple times.
Guys,
but-
Yeah, he has, man. He's won golds.
When do you guys really pay attention to the U.S. swimming?
Hey,
Like,
I
league?
swim.
Do you guys keep track of the national performers every year?
No, I
Big
pay
swimmer.
attention to
Hey man,
1
I
month.
happen to know every no.
Well,
I
I've,
know Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky.
Ryan Lochte. Oh, nice, great.
Nathan
You
Adrian.
missed the one we just talked about.
That was
Yeah.
the point. Was I don't know many.
James might know the most. Yeah.
Well, I have like definitely that ties in with what you were saying about underdog. Like the U.S. we weren't always so dominant, and like I think it was 2008. There was like a relay team, which like is there's 4 guys, and like we were supposed to lose. The French, like they said, like we are going to smash the Americans.
That was good. That was
Thank you,
good.
thank you.
Dang.
That, like,
Shout out to our French viewers.
Yeah,
Pretty sure we don't have any.
and they were like predicted to win.
Awesome.
It was gonna go great, and this was like the last event, and so if Michael Phelps, he had to win gold in this to break the gold medal record. Like there was a lot on the line, and
in one Olympics.
yeah, and it wasn't clear like if he was gonna win. Actually, like, this was a little bit suspect, and they did win. They came from behind. It was like incredible. The dude split the fastest 100-meter split in history. And it was much more exciting to see something that we weren't sure was going to happen. And also like a team, like Michael Phelps swam first. And he sat on the sidelines, but he was like losing it. Like there's a famous picture. He's just like ripped and screaming and like, because he had to care about like someone else, and it was more impactful.
Yeah. That's definitely what we need. So
This is a really I think this was a good kind of cap on our 4-part series we did. If you haven't listened to the other 3, wherever you found this one, you can probably find those too. Actually, you can definitely find those too.
3
On YouTube, I hear, right? Is that
yes,
did I hear that
YouTube, right? Spotify, Apple Music,
Google
Podcast,
Apple Podcasts. There's
Google
different
Podcasts,
85.9.
like Stitcher. We have
Stitcher.
they're on a bunch of different ones.
Overcast,
Yes,
find
on
us on the
Overcast.
radio.
Breaker,
Hot
Radio
99.5.
Public.
We can mail you a flash drive if you want.
We can mail you
that has been done.
we can mail you a cassette tape.
We will come to your house and do this live
If you
Do this?
donate to the stream, the tier 3 donation award is we will live podcast for you.
If you donate more than $100, I will come to your house myself, just me.
I'll do the
To do what? To hang out.
if you donate $105, I'm not sure that doesn't happen.
If you pay me 110, I'll do a handstand.
There we go.
Are we done with this bit?
Yeah.
This bit is done.
Bit is
Let's
done.
hope, but we need
So
to cut this.
listen, the bit is done. So is the mini series. This was very fun, very interesting. I feel like I learned a lot. All 3 of you guys have, I mean, you did your own research, but you also have your own interesting points of view that I think was great to. I know was great to listen to. This is about me. It's always fun talking to people who have interesting points of view, and that's kind of what our podcast is about. And this mini series, again, was based around historical events, history in general, and its marriage with sports and how interconnected they are. And I think we hit a lot of really interesting points. And obviously, this is a mini series. We didn't have time to like go through all of the events, so we cherry picked the ones that we thought were interesting. But if you guys like this, if you those out there listening like this, listen to it a lot and tell us. We have social media. We'll put that at the end. But maybe we'll do this again. Who knows? So thank you again for listening. Again, I'm Eli.
I'm Moof.
I'm Sean at Nino Applause on Twitter.
I'm still James.
And this is When the Lights Go Out podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Sweet.
Beep, beep, boop, beep.
Wow, good luck to the editor. Whoever's editing this.
I think Rachel's gonna. Oh, you're gonna edit the sound, but I think this is a video one, so Rachel's gonna edit them physically.
Uh-oh.
Wait, Rachel's gonna be staring at my face this whole time.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Oh no.
I'm stuck.
Wait,